forward, aware of the usefulness of mandatory recycling in relationship to the pollution problem, the vision of the scenario of interaction between the problem of pollution and mandatory recycling serves to appreciate the extent of the impact. Essentially, mandatory recycling will address the pollution that voluntary recycling is constantly allowing by diverting a vast amount of waste away from the landfills and other possible surfaces where they will pollute the soil and the air. For instance, consider the state of Florida 2012 statistics, which show a decent recycling rates. As a non-mandatory recycling state, a total of 27.8 million tons of municipal solid waste, that is, all the trash you take out, were collected in 2012, out of which 35% were voluntarily recycled. But that number could have been over 52% through mandatory recycling. What does this mean in pollution terms? It means that more than an additional 90,000 cubic yards of waste could have been diverted from the landfills, not to count the prevention of non-collected recyclable waste and the side pollution effects like leachate that could increase this number even higher. Let me put it like this. For those of you familiar with Jacksonville, Florida, this equates to 90 Avenues Mall. That is an area from the Avenues Mall location in the south side all the way to parallel to halfway the JTB, or 361 football fields completely full of waste every year, compromising all that land permanently. When you put it in nationwide terms, considering the 243 million tons of municipal waste collection in the United States reported by the EPA in 2009, we are now talking about more than an additional 10 square miles of land a year that could be conserved. In more familiar terms, that is over half a Manhattan Island that become useless every year. But the big picture is even greater. When we take into account the same potential achievement through mandatory industrial waste recycling, the numbers tell us that literally a Manhattan Island completely vanishes every year. And in 10 years, that will be an area from Manhattan all the way to Long Beach completely full of waste. Even worse, since only 19 states recycle as much as Florida, with the majority recycling below 29%, the conservation land could be even greater. As you can see, the states on dark blue are the only ones that recycle more than 30%. Everybody else don't. Aside from this mass prevention of soil pollution, mandatory recycling is also leading to an equally massive reduction of methane and carbon dioxide that contaminates the air, as less trash will produce less toxic gases. Thus, since trash in landfills constantly produce these invisible gases, we are talking about a massive invisible cloud of over the size of Manhattan Island that will not be cruising through neighborhood and to the atmosphere, polluting what comes in contact with it. That's only when mandatory recycling becomes effective. In detail, once mandatory recycling becomes the standard of application at all levels, a smooth distribution of recycled materials will flow into the appropriate pre-designated locations, leading to a slippery slope of benefits as better described by the South Carolina Department of Health and Environmental Control. Are you wondering how this will be like? Think about this. You, your neighbor, and everyone else just take a few minutes a week to do the same thing you do when taking the trash out, but just follow the provided instruction to separate and distribute the recyclable materials to separated bins, like this. There, the contracted holders will collect the materials while ensuring material is up to specification, so it will not delay the recycling process. And if not up to specification, just refuse to collect the materials. Materials will then be delivered to facilities like this one for the process of them up to reintroduction to the consumption cycle. Likewise, will the commercial and industrial sector proceed, although obviously in a greater scale. The previous will assure a constant deviation of recyclable materials away from landfills that will reduce the pollution as previously described and become a supply for the same materials while providing a self-funding program. In essence, today you hear about whole forests being destroyed to create paper products, but afterward you will hear about reforestation instead of deforestation. Moreover, today the EPA warns of ever-rising levels of emission increasing the global warming problem. But afterward, the damaging rate of emission will for once decrease significantly. Also, in the present, the annual budget negotiation slowly decreased the quality of waste management and related preventive services, but once mandatory recycling is in place, you will witness a steady improvement of management techniques as well as greater containment and understanding of the remaining pollution made possible by additional revenues and benefits. In overall summary, society will finally be able to take the upper hand in the currently uphill battle against waste-related pollution that past generations have created and we continue to aggravate.